Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us here today on the occasion of International Women's Day. We have SciSec, we have brought together a wonderful panel of women to all of you, talking about how they got to where they got to and some of the challenges that they've faced in their career and some really good advices, tips, and hints for you to take away from all of these conversations. With that, I am Dr. Saritha Arunkumar. I'm the IBM Public Cloud Worldwide Technical Leader for Security, and I have with me three amazing women, Camille, Debbie, and Sarah. So I'm going to start by asking each one of them to tell a little bit about themselves so that you all know who we have in the panel today. I'm going to start with you, Camille. Would you like to tell a little bit about yourself to all of our audience here?
Awesome. Thank you, Saritha. Yeah, and thank you for inviting me today as well. Really excited to kind of be on the panel and hopefully impart a bit of knowledge and maybe some value to the watchers as well. So my name is Camille Mallon. I am co-founder of a community called WITCH, so it's Women in, here we go, Women in Technology Cyber Hub. So that's based in Cheltenham, Bristol. That is a community that empowers women to get into cyber, get into technology, but also we work a lot on the softer skills, reskilling, looking at yourself, how that impacts going into work. And then the day job is for Immersive Labs. So I manage delivery over there and work with a lot of their teams to enable high performance. Yeah, apart from that, I am a mum. I have a dog called Daisy, who also kind of, keeps me out and active. But yeah, really looking forward to today's panel, and thank you again for having me.
Excellent. So wearing lots of different hats there, Camille. Wonderful to have you.
Every woman does, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lovely to have you here with us today. Debbie, over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Saritha. Hi, everybody, and thank you to SciSec for this opportunity. It's always great to get a bunch of like-minded women in the same environment like this. My name is Debi Mccormack. I am Communications Director at the Cyber Scheme, and essentially we assess and train technical cybersecurity professionals against assessments that have been certified by the NCSC. So it's a very sort of technical side of cybersecurity. They are basically aiming to begin and then develop their careers in security testing, otherwise known as penetration testing. And we basically have been around for quite a long time assessing these guys for the check scheme, which means that most of the people that we have come into contact with have been mid-level practitioners that are already in this space. But as I started the cyber scheme sort of marketing and communications role a couple of years ago, it became really obvious to me that a lot of the questions I was being asked were, how do I get into this space? I've got my degree, I've got all my theoretical knowledge, but I just don't know how to get that first job. And so it's become a little bit of a passion of mine to support and encourage people to come in at more of an entry level, because if we don't do that, then we're going to run out of people at the practitioner level that we normally would look at assessing and training, and we're going to end up with a bit of a top-heavy situation, and that's not sustainable when we all know that we need so much growth within this industry. So that's something that I'm very focused on, getting more and more people and obviously more and more women into this space.
That is amazing. And I think if we all can do a little bit of what you're doing, we are in the right direction, Debbie. So I really hope that you're successful in what you're doing, and all of us will try and help you as much as possible in that goal of yours. Sarah, over to you now. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? And you have a lovely smile this morning today.
Yeah, hopefully you can't see through my smile to behind, but yeah, so I'm Sarah, and I'm really excited to be on this as well. I feel I've been in cyber, oh gosh, since probably the early 2000s, or information security as we used to call it back then, and I just feel that the community has given me so much. It's really nice to be able to now be in a position to share what I've learned. So yeah, back then in the early 2000s, I've always been in a security communications role. really helping, working with security teams to educate the workforce, non-cyber, non-security people about secure behaviours. And for me, that sort of then developed into a passion, studying more around security culture, about positive and negative reinforcement, a bit of neuroscience, a bit of psychology. And then 8 years ago, I set up my business, Layer 8, and what we're about is harnessing that collective power of people that already exists within a business, you know, whether they're in HR, in IT, in finance, to come together and help be security champions. And that's what we do now as Layer 8 is run and develop organisations, champions programs. And we've got a blueprint that we use, which is very much around, you know, when we have conversations, when we collaborate, and when we have a positive focus, a strength-based positive focus, that's when we can bring about change. So yeah, I guess other things about me, don't take myself too seriously, literally have a go at anything. I find it very difficult to say no. I'm the same. I've got a young daughter as well, or I've got a mum role to put on, and in between that, also try and do a few triathlons as well.
Excellent. So
Why not?
Camille, were you going to say something?
Just saying, you know, in Sarah's spare time, Saritha, a triathlon here and there. You know.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing to see the variety of things that all three of you are doing, you know, apart from doing your day job, your everyday thing as well. I think it's nice to get a view about all of the things that you, Camille, Debi, and Sarah, all of you are doing. So audience have a little bit of view about your roles, your lifestyle, and also the areas that you're interested in. I think the next thing to do would be to maybe talk a little bit about some of the career challenges. I know sometimes when we talk about our leadership roles, you know, we always say, oh, we got to here and we did that and did this. But I know it's not all a rosy picture. There are a lot of situations, a lot of challenges that we all face every day and that we've faced and we've overcome and we've tried different ways to deal with these. Maybe what we should do is maybe spend a little bit of time, each one of you, taking us through the different career challenges that you faced, however back you want to go, and then how you overcame and how, you know, what were some of the ways that you dealt with this. So probably, Sarah, I'll start with you first. Give us a little bit of view about some of those challenges and maybe some solutions for that as well. I know all of them may not have solutions, but wherever you had, just try and take us through it, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at this beforehand, kind of listing them down, and then thinking, gosh, I can't talk about all of them. We'd be here all day. But I guess that the very first one that I came up against really early in my career is this this kind of real desire to move on in the space of security, but going for roles and constantly being told, look, we really like you, Sarah, but actually you don't have enough experience, you don't have enough experience, you don't have enough experience. And at this point, I was actually in quite a large global organization, and young, and you know, everybody told me, you should stay here, it's got good career opportunities, there's a good pension. But I just thought, I'm just going to get stuck. So in the end, I left and I worked for a very small organisation, very small to the point that my office was somebody's converted living room. And at that point in my career, it just opened up so many opportunities. It was a difficult decision to make, I think. So that's sort of the first piece that I would say, you know, if and when you can, often there's sort of a path that you think you should follow, and that might not be right for you just because that's what everybody says you should do. That's what the books say. That might not be the right thing. I guess something else that then got me is when I was then in this smaller organisation, you know, I jumped up the ladder quite quickly, because I don't know, in my mind it was because, well, nobody else is doing it, so I was the ops director, then I was the MD. But I never gave myself credit that actually maybe it was because I was all right at this. I just thought, I've achieved this because nobody else is doing it. To the point that I remember when I went to meetings, I physically couldn't introduce myself as the director without like coughing the word out. I just couldn't get it out. Um, gosh, but I don't know what the advice is for that, other than just believe in yourself. I think eventually I got there and kind of practiced a little bit more, and also made time to get to know people that were my peers. You know, the person behind the nice polished person that turned up in the suit, and recognize, oh, hang on a minute, that we're not much different, really. And I think then when I started Layer 8, you know, now I talk a lot in the industry, and I'll get up and I'm quite happy to stand in front of people. But being visible was a real challenge for me, because I thought people are going to say, well, who are you, Sarah? You haven't got anything of value to add. And yeah, I just went out and got myself training. I thought, I need to be visible. I need to be able to make my point. I need to practice it. Yeah, and people will often say, well, you're natural. And I'm like, well, you should have seen me 15 years ago. I'm absolutely not a natural. I had to practice.
Well, I think you've definitely done great. And I would say, when you said you thought you were all right for getting those roles, I think you were more than all right. I think you were absolutely great and fantastic at what you were doing, because of which you got to the MD role as well. So I think you should have been proud to introduce yourself and say what your role is, because not a lot of people get to where you have got to at that age. And so you should have been proud, and you should have always been thinking, no, I'm more than all right. I must have done something really good. So be proud about what you've done, Sarah.
I am now.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I think there are lots of different challenges that you touched on there. I would like to hear from you, Camille, now, as to, you know, whether some challenges that were probably you're relating to Sarah, or whether it's some others that you want to share with us, and maybe you had some way of overcoming those, had some solutions, or some that were left as it is and you moved on. Take us through that, please.
Definitely a few we just left and shelved, Saritha, I would say. But Sarah, I was listening to what you were saying there, and it breaks my heart that you hear this so many times, like over and over again, like these awesome women that have, you know, it's a societal thing, right? In my humble opinion, that, you know, we're taught not to shout about our achievements, and, you know, being loud is brash, and you shouldn't do that as a woman. And, you know, kind of being ambitious is aggressive, you know, these alpha traits, right? And I just hear it so often, and like my heart breaks every time I hear it, because I can relate also, as I'm sure like many people as on the call and also listening can. So, you know, something that I would probably add to that was, I think everybody has at some point dealt with imposter syndrome or a version of it, for whatever their reasons are. There's lots, but a lot of the time it's kind of working through the thing that you're feeling and figuring out why. And I do get quite deep into these conversations, because I believe that feeling stems from something normally deeper within the person. And once you find that, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And you can turn the corner very quickly. But it requires a lot of self-awareness and being brave, I think. So, you know, big kind of kudos for you for kind of smashing through that. It's awesome to see. In terms of challenges, I guess for me, similar to what Sarah said, you know, she mentioned that she's a mum. I'm a single mum, have been for, Oliver is 11, he'll be 12 in November, but have been since pretty much he was born, with a minimal kind of family support network. And I would go through peaks and troughs of taking on the world and taking on teams, and, you know, progressing everybody else's career, and then burning out quite a lot. So to tackle that, I took a step back and I really thought, okay, this is the situation I'm in and I have a wonderful life, but it's not going to change. The child's not going anywhere, the job's not going anywhere. So I had to learn to not balance. I don't believe there is a balance between work and life in general, but regulate. So find what my baseline was, understand where I felt comfortable in terms of capacity from every area of life, and recognize when I was going over my baseline, whether it was feeling overwhelmed, whether it was, kind of looking around the kitchen and nothing's done or whatever. So that's it's quite a tangible kind of thing that I learned, read about, understanding to recognize when things are sort of falling off a cliff a little bit, and then coming back to the baseline and saying no was as a big one for me as well. I think again, as women, we are absolutely conditioned to say yes to a lot of things and take on people's emotional kind of challenges, their career challenges, everything. But it's much better to kind of say, actually, I can't do that right now. I want to, and I'll come back to it. But right now, this isn't, I'm not going to be able to help you with that. That was, once I started saying no, things got much easier and much more regulated and smooth and consistent. So that would be my kind of my challenges and how I continue to deal with them and still learn and still go wrong a lot of the time.
I think that one is a difficult one, especially maybe Camille. I want if you don't mind, I might want you to elaborate a little bit on that. A lot of times, especially younger women who have just started their career, would probably shy away, thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't say no. Maybe this is going to, put my job at risk. So it's that hesitation that's there for them a lot of times, and they'd say, oh, we probably have to say yes to everything. My take is that, you don't have to say yes to everything. You try and do how much you can, and you can always prove your credibility by the way you do your job, because, you as women, we are always trying to do our best. So whatever you try to do, the outcome is going to be amazing. So instead of trying to say yes to all the 10 things, you probably say yes to 5, and then you excel at it. I think that's good enough. And you don't have to hesitate to say no. This is for women who are just starting their career. What's your take on it, Camille?
It's not going to be the pretty answer. I think that might be best heard. I think it's something that develops in time. When I kind of first started working in tech and cyber, I said yes to a lot. I still do in probably some cases. I don't think it's something you can go into your career and immediately sort of have this good sense of confidence and self-worth. It's great if you do, awesome. But it's built, and it comes with age, it comes with experience, and being aware. I think it's always good to find a mentor as well. I still have multiple mentors to soundboard things off. That's why we run our mentoring platform, which is so beneficial to lots of young ladies coming into cyber. So we've made some awesome, really cool matches for ladies that might have found it difficult to say no or be taking on too much. And a mentor is a really good sounding board, not to tell you what to do, but to say, okay, well, if you keep saying yes, what else becomes not possible in your life? It's up to you what you do, and helping phrase that word as well. Mm-hmm. It's not just a single kind of no, it's a looking at, okay, I want to do this, and always having that positive intent when you deliver the message. I really want to help you. It's not something I can do right now. Can we look at it in a couple of weeks? And it makes it a bit more palatable for everyone. I would suggest to kind of young ladies and people in general starting in the cyber sector.
That's a great piece of advice, which nicely segues me into you, Debi, your expertise in the communications area within cyber. I think I'm sure, we talked about a couple of them already here. There are so many challenges in communications within cyber itself. Do you want to maybe highlight a little bit about that, and then and maybe offer some solutions as well, if there are any?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things, and I think, you know, you talk to anyone who's got experience within this industry, most of us have fallen into it. You know, we've come through some other channel, and that is partly because the cybersecurity industry is so immature. You know, you're not going to get people with 20, 30 years experience, because 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have the industry that we've got today. And so I would say that what that's done is bring together people from all different fields and from all different specialisms. I have an advertising background. So when I left university, I went into London and I worked in Australia for many years, and I was in these big advertising agencies where it was all about the show and the performance and being part of this sort of very glamorous world. And I would say that one of the really good things that I learned from that was that in order to advertise, which is essentially what we're all doing with our own businesses, right, whether you're in that department or not, you need to become a subject matter expert in a very narrow field. And what I mean by that is that I am never going to be a security tester. I am never going to understand Python and JavaScript, and I don't still to this day know what an SQL injection is. It doesn't matter, as long as I can communicate to the person that I'm communicating with, that I know enough about the subject so that they gain confidence and they are able to then go and either increase their learning elsewhere, or I can put them in touch with somebody that can do that. And I think it's really important within cybersecurity to talk about the human nature of what we do, even within the field that I work in, which is basically the techie end, the data end, if you like. We still are all humans, and we need to communicate our findings, and we need to be able to communicate what we discover. We need to be able to anticipate pressure if there's an incident. We need to be able to communicate what we think is happening. It's so important. So I think that actually coming from an advertising background, that's actually put me in good stead, because when I talk to people who are in a technical background and have come into cyber through their love of coding or their love of developing or the more technical areas, I constantly remind them, you need to learn to talk. You need to learn to talk to people who don't have the technical expertise that you have, and you need to be able to explain things to them simply and succinctly. And I know Camilla mentioned earlier about the importance of the soft skills within cyber, and I absolutely advocate that, although I don't think they're soft. I think they're actually quite hard to learn. You know, these are real skills, being able to communicate properly. But I think that because I've sort of fallen into an industry, and I laugh about this with my colleagues at the Cyber Scheme. My job title is Communications Director, and I work in an area of cyber where we're not allowed to talk about a lot of the stuff that we do. So I'm constantly coming up with this challenge of how do I talk about that, and how do I encourage people, and how do I get people really excited about this field without breaking any confidentiality laws or getting GCHQ coming down very heavily on me about what I have and haven't said. And I think that that's something about not being frightened, about being brave, about believing in what you're saying, but also owning up to sometimes making mistakes. Because if you don't try and you don't communicate, and you're always in the background, and you're that person that is unable to put forward their opinion, then you're not going to get to the place that you deserve to be. So I would say that even in this world where communication is probably not the first thing you think of when you think of cybersecurity, I would say it's absolutely imperative that people learn to communicate. And I think that there is a cultural norm where women, we are natural communicators, and that should be seen as a strength, and that should be seen as something that is really advocated for within cybersecurity. Because if we do leave it all up to the technical guys, then we end up in places that none of us understand, and we can't do that. We need to embrace this industry for it to grow, and communication to me is really the key for that.
Absolutely, and I think I want to second that with my own thoughts here, Debi, and it's around the security culture. Whenever I talk about security culture, communication is on the top of the list for me there, because whether it's technical discussions or business discussions, and I know we chatted about this a while back, is, you know, if you're a technical person and if you're talking to a business person, the language that you use is also different. It cannot be the same language. So communication is absolutely essential, whether we are in a cyber crisis situation, a cyber incident situation or not. So completely agree with you, and everything that you've said. If I may add a career challenge that I have faced, earlier on in the career, and which still comes up a lot, is when you're in front of a client, whether it's a C-suite, a board of directors, senior director, or a business stakeholder, a lot of times you're the subject matter expert, which means everybody expects you to have all of the answers. I think one of the career challenges is that I see a lot is, if you don't know an answer to something, it's okay to say that you don't know, but it's like researching that and then coming back and then having a thorough answer to the question that your client has asked. I think that is what builds credibility, right? A lot of times people find it challenging, and I think this is one of the career challenges that I hear from a lot of people mentioning as well, that they expect you to know everything. It doesn't mean that you have to waffle and come up with an answer when a question is asked right then and there, right? You can always say no and come back and add to it. I think again another aspect of communication there, probably. Debi, would you agree?
Yeah, and I think Camille touched on it as well when she was talking about that bravery that you show. I think the answer that I would say is you don't ever say no, but you often say not yet. I don't have the answer to that yet. And that gives you an open-ended ability to then go back and do the research or find the subject matter expert that does have that answer. I do that a lot. I'll say, I don't know the answer to that, but I know someone who does. And then you're still providing a solution. You're not closing that door. But I also agree with you that waffling on, and I do sometimes get questions asked of me, very technical questions when I'm out and about. The worst thing that I could do is pretend to be an expert in these fields, and I would get found out very quickly. So I think it's really important to own up to that and be okay with that. And be a conduit to the knowledge that person is seeking, rather than expect that you have to have of everything in your own head.
Indeed, indeed. And on that, Debi, if I can come back to you, what sort of advice or tips would you give to women, or in general anybody who's trying to seek a career within cybersecurity, but also specific to communications within cyber? Do you want to give us some tips for that?
Well, again, I think it's been touched on before, but finding a mentor for me is absolutely key. I think one of the worst things you can do is use Google to communicate with. If we're talking about communicating and learning, if you're going to search, how do I get into cyber, or what training course should I do, or what aspects of cyber pay the most, or these things that Google are going to, or an AI generator, or whatever, however you research it, it's going to come back with the training course that's got the biggest marketing budget, or the thing that's been in the news lately. It's not going to be the thing that actually feeds you. And I think the only way that you can become confident that you are able to go out and seek the work and the job that you're capable of doing is by talking to people that are already in that field. So I'd say the first thing to do is really do some self-learning about all the different specialisms within cyber, because they really are roles for everybody. It's a very broad church. There are roles for people that are technical, that people aren't, that people that love the human side, the ethics, the law, the governance. You've got the incident response, the real sort of high energy stuff. Go and find out which one of those actually fits your character, fits your personality, and then find a subject matter expert within that specialism. You have to narrow this down yourself. You can't do it by just Googling what pays the most, because you're not going to have the passion and you may not have the personality fit for that role. What you've got to do is really sort of do a bit of self-analysis, and Sarah touched on it before about psychology is such an important part of finding a role within cyber. You have to understand yourself in order to be able to understand your career. But I think that mentorship is absolutely key in that. Talk to someone who's been there and has walked in those shoes, and that can explain to you what you've got up against, what you're going to come up against in the future.
That's absolutely great insights there, and great way to kind of keep yourselves up to date as well, right? It's always trying to keep yourself up to date with what's changing and what's evolving, and trying to stay current. And on your point around mentoring, I think if I may add there, Debbie, it's always great to have mentors that you aspire to be like, mentors at the same level as you, and also to be able to mentor people who are trying to get to where you are. Because that way it's also kind of cross mentoring, I'd say. You're learning something from them, they're learning something from you as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's really important as well to become really familiar with organisations such as CySec, the UK Cybersecurity Council, SASIG, all of these organisations that when you're coming out of university you may not have heard about, and get involved in them. Get involved in organisations such as the Witch community, because that's the way that you're going to make these connections, and that's the way that you're going to talk to people who have already been in this field, not the people that have got the big advertising budgets and they're just trying to get money out of you because that ticks their training agenda.
Absolutely. That's a great piece of advice there, Debbie. Sarah, I'm going to come to you now. Any advice, any tips that you want to share to women who are seeking to start a cybersecurity career and be successful as you are?
I mean, very much linked to what yourself and Debbie have just spoken about. I think, don't underestimate the power of those relationships. And I would say, get out to as many conferences as you can, network, don't be afraid. I had somebody at an event last week who was part of the waiting staff who said, have you got any apprenticeships? I said, well, a bit like, I haven't at the moment, but let me put you in touch with CySec, and I'm sure there'll be lots of advice that they can give you. But yeah, get out, network to people, make relationships. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes you think, oh, there's this big person, they're really busy. Literally, I gained so much by sitting in rooms with people and saying, can I just have 5 minutes of your time? Can I just ask you a question? Most people will be flattered, and if they're not flattered and don't want to give you their time, it's probably no loss to you anyway, because they're probably not going to give you anything. And I guess finally, there is no such thing as a cyber rock star. There's people that are perhaps a little bit more familiar because they've been around a little bit longer, they've had a little bit more airtime. But like you were saying, they don't know more than you, whatever stage of the career. They might know a little bit more about certain specialist topics, but everybody can always learn all of the time. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help and ask questions.
That's amazing, Sarah. Thanks for those great pieces of advice. And I'll come to you, Camille. Do you want to maybe share some tips and advices that you want to give away to our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning like now, so I'm like, this is great. I'm making notes, mental notes. So I think these panels are really good. Sometimes when I watch them back, there's all this great advice, right? But a lot of it it's like, yeah, but how do I do that? Like, what's the thing that I have to like type or LinkedIn or whatever? And so you both mentioned about mentoring and networking, which I +1 all day long. The bit of kind of value I think might be added to the audience is, what network do you want to go into, right? There's a million different cyber networks. So have a look on, LinkedIn and find the group that fits with you. Like some I don't fit with, it's not my thing, it's not my vibe. Others I'm like, oh, I really like the people here, they're really open, willing to talk, so research the networking group that fits you. Don't just go to all of them, and again, to echo what Sarah said, even if you LinkedIn someone and say, could you advise a group, they will reply. Like, it is, like Sarah said, it's flattering to be asked, and a lot of the time they're the people that know. So definitely, be bold, brave and curious. The other one, if I may offer, is to look at your transferable skills. So we speak to which a lot of ladies and men and non-binary people that say, I'm not in cyber, but I don't know anything about cyber, right? It's like the most common thing. I don't know about cyber, so I can't be in cyber. But if you look at a job role and it says loads of stuff about agile and scrum or pen testing or whatever, it's probably something very similar in terms of process to what you're already doing in your current job. It's just a case of, I'm sure Debbie gets this probably quite a lot, like translating the language. You know, people kind of go, oh yeah, but I just do project management. How can I do agile or waterfall or safe or whatever? Like, it's a caveat this, it's, you know, it's a similar process. So understanding that you don't have to, I don't have a computer science degree, I didn't go to university, but I learned that by communication and understanding, okay, actually, if you do this, I already do that. It's just different wording on a CV. So don't be put off by the big words and the big requirements on adverts. Ring the recruiter and say, this is what I currently do. Let me explain it to you. Does it match? So look at your transferable skills would be one, and reach out to the network that fits you and gives you belonging, you know, makes you feel safe would be my second.
That's great. That's great, Camille. Thank you so much for adding on some, you know, additional advices as well, along with what Debbie and Sarah said. If I try to summarize this, I think we are, you know, for the audiences, we are talking about staying current, working on those skills that you are interested in, that you're passionate about. Always go for, you know, mentoring is something that's absolutely essential and key, and it's never late to have a mentor if you don't have one, and have many mentors, as many mentors as you want. They may be mentors who might help you generally with your skills. There may be mentors who might help you with your career progression. So there'll be mentors of all sorts. I think that's another key message. The other one was around networking. So networking can take you places, and I can vouch for it because it was through networking that I've got all of the roles that I've got so far in my career. So networking can take you a long, long way. And the other one is, I think, around give back, which I'd like to add as well, is think about give back. I mean, you know, a panel like this, I'd say Debbie, Camille, and Sarah, they have actually given their time to this panel, to, you know, whatever busy schedule they're in, they're here today. This is a give back example of a give back. Give back could be done in any number of ways. You could go to schools, universities, talk about cyber, talk about security, encourage more people to get into STEM, and that's just one form of give back. And I think give back also opens a lot of avenues for you. So that's something else that I'd like to add as well. It's been great talking to the three of you here today about your careers, about the different challenges, and some amazing tips and hints and guidance for audiences to take away. I think we are probably getting to the close of this panel now. Time's ticking away. So what I'd like to do is maybe if each one of you have like a final message or something that you want to leave your audiences with, I think that'll be the right thing to do now. So I'll start with you itself, Camille, and you know, give us that one key message or final message that you have that you want to maybe leave our audiences with.
Yeah, so spotlight. I would say, like most people that know me, Saritha, I will always say be curious. Like, be curious about everything you do, be curious about the conversations that you're having and the people that you're having them with, because the person you're talking to, they're not judging you, looking at you, judging you. They're not looking at you thinking, what do you know? They're waiting for the next thing you say. That's all. So the more you question, the more you'll find out, and the more that other person could learn. So approach everything with curiosity. And in my opinion, you can't go far wrong.
Excellent. Well, that's a wonderful message to leave the audience with. Thank you so much for that, Camille. Let me come to you, Sarah. What is your final message to our audience today on the International Day, Women's Day, or Women's Week occasion here today?
I think I'd just like to advocate for coming into the cyber industry. I think one of the things is, you know, it's certainly not stale. Literally every month, week, year, you know, things are changing. So it's not, you know, it's definitely not a dying industry. It's going to be completely different when you come in to when you leave. When I used to walk into a conference, it was, you know, me and loads of men in black suits. And the message is, when I leave this career, let's hope it's the other way round. or
That
equal
is
at least.
fantastic. Yeah, no, that is fantastic. I think that's probably going in the right direction, to have more women and not just have men. Yeah, so I think you summed it really well. So there's nothing more for me to add there, Sarah. Thank you so much for that lovely message. Debbie, what is your final message to the audience here today?
I think that one of my roles at the Cyber Scheme is developing professional registration, which is something that CySec are obviously very involved with as well. And this is a topic for another day. But I think one of the things that professional registration will do, which is essentially that people that come into this industry now will end up being chartered, much like a chartered surveyor, a chartered accountant. We are now growing this industry so that we will have chartered cyber professionals. And I think that the one thing that means is that you begin this journey at whatever level you come in at, and you know that it's going to be a lifelong learning journey. As Sarah said, this industry evolves very, very, very quickly. I mean, a year ago, we weren't really talking about quantum computing. 2 years ago, we weren't really talking about AI. So these things are now in our vernacular. So this is things that have changed immediately our industry straight away, overnight. So I think that one of the things about professionalizing this industry, it's a really positive message, because what it does is standardize the sort of background and the sort of education and the sort of knowledge and skills that you are going to need to be able to go through this industry and get to that chartered status. And that means that all of the obscurity and the lack of transparency and the sort of alphabet soup of certifications and training and qualifications, hopefully that will all start to become clearer as we move towards everyone understanding the professional path that they need to be on. So my one piece of advice for people coming into this industry is to do some research around professional registration. Go onto the UK Cybersecurity Council's website, learn about the specialisms that are going to have a chartership, and understand that your journey starts here and that it will never end. Your path is all about learning, and embrace that learning and enjoy that learning, and then you will have a career that you will absolutely love.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Debbie. I think there is quite a lot of information that we've given here today to the audience. We talked about the UK cybersecurity scheme. We talked about the cybersecurity, the cyber scheme itself. We talked about layer 8. We talked about which. We talked about CySec, of course. That's how we're hosting this panel here today. So there's a lot of different avenues for you to make use of, to leverage. And I think the urge is to, go out there, try and do your research, try and get as much information and make use of those information so that it benefits all of you. I think with that, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of CySec to thank you all, Camille, Sarah, and Debbie, for taking time today and being part of this wonderful panel on the occasion of International Women's Week, Women's Day. We have gathered here today, just to give a little bit of information, a little bit of advice, some tips and hints to all of the people that are watching this panel. So hopefully you've enjoyed watching this panel. Thank you to all of you once again, Camille, Sarah, and Debi, for being here today with us. And it was lovely talking to all of you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching this, and happy International Women's Day to all of you, and enjoy life and stay safe and look after yourself. Thank you very much.